Hello everyone, it's me Clayson. I just finished watching Wrath of Man, directed by Guy Ritchie and starring Jason Statham. Now, when it comes to Guy Ritchie's films, the last one I ended up reviewing was actually The Gentleman back last year, before the pandemic hit. So it is nice to see one of his films in theaters again. And it's definitely going to please you if you're a fan of Jason Statham and his action films, but its mystery and thriller aspects do feel like they are overwrought, and they do feel like they're stretching out what's a pretty thin plot. Let's get to the story, shall we? The story revolves around H. At least that's the nickname given to a security guard played by Jason Statham, who suddenly has taken up a job in America after supposedly being a highly efficient security guard back in England. However, after he happens to apprehend some thieves in a way that's very reminiscent of an action hero, a lot of these security guards are wondering, who is this guy? How is he so competent here when he barely passed his exams? Well, turns out Jason Statham is hiding something from those security guards as he's going on a roaring road of revenge to take out the guys who ended up killing his son. While we also focus on the guys who ended up killing his kid, who have their own scheme to essentially go for a robbery that'll make them set for life as far as cash is concerned. Only problem is their attempted robbery is at the depot of the security company that Jason Statham is currently working at. But that's all I'll say about the story. The story is actually pretty light on plot, considering that there's only a few aspects to the story that you need to understand in order to get the gist of the actual action. But the story here is good enough for what it is. It certainly does allow Guy Ritchie to go through the story in an out-of-order fashion that actually does manage to repeat a lot of information, but it also happens to keep you engaged in a story that's mostly pretty simplistic. It seems like he does that for a lot of the stories where the base storyline is really simple, but it's told in an unorthodox way. And I have to say Statham's bits are probably the most engrossing, and they're the ones that are the most straightforward, but also the ones that are the most interesting, considering Statham really commits himself to the performance. The ones focusing on the antagonists that are going for the entire heist are less interesting to me. In fact, I only remember some of the characters from that section of the film because one of them voiced Invincible in the Amazon series, and one of them happened to play Mother's Milk in The Boys. When that's the best thing that I can say about the characters in that respect, you should tell that they're not exactly very memorable. In fact, a lot of the action beats here are fairly standard for the most part, and outside of the bloody headshots and a couple of rapid fire gun based kills, the action here is pretty straightforward as far as crime films by Guy Ritchie are considered. But they are pretty satisfying, and the film does move at a pretty solid pace through the first act and the third act. The second act, however, does drag a tiny bit, especially considering it goes over information that we've seen beforehand in the film, to the point where it feels like it's padding in a few areas. But for what it is, Wrath of Man is a fairly satisfying action film, and I do think that you should give it a shot, if only for Statham's committed performance and some of the bloody action scenes. That's why I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. See you next time.